Welcome everyone coming in. We're going to take a couple minutes and make sure everyone's able to get into the meeting. And I'm here with Traci Brooks, who's co-hosting tonight's event with me.
Hi everyone, welcome.
So welcome to the American Equestrian School Champions Speaker Series. I thought that it would be a really good opportunity tonight to talk to Traci and Carleton as Devon just finished and they trained the Grand Hunter Champion. Only always we're going to be visited by a couple special guests throughout the time, and you're welcome to submit questions in the question and answer, raise hands and ask questions about Devon, the process, American Equestrian School, and really how we can work together to use expertise to revolutionize how we run education in our industry. I think most of us, probably all of us on this recording, had to learn pretty much everything the hard way, which we'll talk a little bit with Traci and Carleton about. And that doesn't need to be how the next generation faces all of these same things that they need to learn about horses, all of the stuff that changes, all of the stuff that never changes. So welcome, Traci.
Thanks, Piper.
You want to tell us a little bit about kind of the immediate lead up to Devon and what that week was like?
Yes, the immediate lead up to Devon wasn't so immediate. It happened basically a year in advance. Once we knew we had a special horse, we started sort of working backwards with Devon as one of our end goals. So we spent the whole year sort of just prepping for that. The EHV in California slowed us down a little bit, but leading up to Devon, our horses always travel by tractor trailer, by truck, which Carleton drives with another driver. So we feel like that's the safest, healthiest way for our personal horses to travel. And he's with them all the time. They drive straight through. So it takes about, I don't know, 40 to 50 hours, depending on how quickly they drive and how many times they stop. And we have a layover farm at Jimmy Toronto's. We always go there in Pennsylvania and let the horses just decompress, settle in. They get to go out on the beautiful grass paddocks there. He has a big ring. The horses can gallop and stretch. So we hang out there for 5 to 6 days, and then we head into the horse show. And we just kind of acclimate. This particular horse, Only Always, we took him in a little early to the show. We had an extra stall for junior week, and we just brought him in so he could see all the sights, because if you haven't been to Devon, it's a little overwhelming. There's the fair and the big Ferris wheel. So basically we just brought him in and let him hang out, walk around, get out of his stall a number of times a day and just kind of take a deep breath. And we let him see the ring in the morning, and we didn't work him very hard. We just let him see his new surroundings and get comfortable. That was the main thing.
Awesome. I'm going to jump in here and say hi to some people who are introducing themselves in the chat. Welcome, everyone. I saw Pam Saul on there. We've had her on the Plaidcast a couple times that Traci and I have hosted. She is an amazing resource for all equestrians. Pam Saul Bookkeeping. She helps keep everyone on track. And we all know it's harder than ever to run a horse business because they are legitimate businesses and need to be run according to regular traditional commercial laws. And Pam has whipped so many horse people into shape. So I'm so glad to see her here. I saw Reagan, whose book I actually have right here. She does horse management and riding and horsemanship. These are both volume 1s of her books. So we have a lot of great educators and people with the same mission visiting. Welcome Naomi from Missouri, Sasha from Hawaii, Anna from New York, Randy from Michigan, Evie from LA, and Jackie from Lexington. So we're getting a great group in here. So welcome everyone. And we'll go back to Traci. Traci telling us about kind of getting to Devon, identifying that Only Always was a special horse who was worth over a year of preparation and organization to to make it to the Devon Horse Show and to plan to peak at that moment?
Yes, we actually, it's a funny story. We found Only Always on a video. We get sent a lot of videos, and anyone who knows Carleton knows that he's not the most technological person. So most of the videos end up coming to me somehow, and it's hard to sift through, and who has the time to watch all these videos? And you watch a few minutes of a video and move on to the next one. And usually that's happening like at 11 p.m. You're bleary eyed anyways. And I just happened to see this video and I kept watching, and the horse was amazing, and it got better and better. And Piper, you've seen the video, and
I thought you were going to say Carleton doesn't like any of the horses he's on videos, which is also true. He's very picky.
That is also true, because I sift through the videos, and then the ones that I think he won't hate, I send to him, and then he usually hates them anyway.
Anyways, yeah.
Yeah, so this one, he didn't hate. He said, buy it. So we did, sight unseen, except for that little like 2-minute video. And the horse showed up and came directly to Thermal. It was Thermal 2021. Yeah, Thermal 2021. And he was really sensitive and nervous. It was the first thing we found out about him. So we just took our time, and we knew right then, we knew he was a nice horse, but we knew it was gonna not be a quick fix. So we took our time, and it's been basically now a year and a half almost. And here he is.
I think that's kind of a lot of these discussion points are how do we bring these horses along in a way that's correct and right for them? How do we use the data we have at the time, the experience we have at the time? I think one of the things that I talk to professionals about a lot is how many horses that they ruined when they were young, that they rushed, or they went too fast, they went too slow, and ultimately they know maybe that horse could have done something larger, but it had to find a modified career because of where they were in their own emotional journey and where they were in their own knowledge base. How can we kind of use school to have essentially less horse waste in our community? How can we use school to come together and learn these lessons, more as a group? And we're always going to have trial and error. We're always going to have learning. We're never going to be perfect. But how do we make horses' lives better through our own education?
Well, that's why we're so excited about the American Equestrian School, because everyone can learn from all of our mistakes and hopefully avoid them for themselves. So there are going to be actual classes about everything from horse nutrition to horse conditioning to horse purchasing, horse selling, shoeing, everything under the sun that you want to learn about horses, and some things that you don't, but to hopefully be the best steward of horses that we can all be. And we're going to have so many great people coming in to speak to us. We're so excited. I wish there was something like this when I was in school. And so that's what so many professionals have said to me when I tell them about the school. So basically we can make it anything we want, which is so great. And whatever people want to learn relating to horses, we can cover through AES.
And I think that, it's pointing out with this horse that this horse would have been special with anyone, but very few people would have had the experience and the maturity to not try to show him immediately and not try to, give him that foundation. There's so much rush. There's so much rush to produce and rush to show and rush to win things and rush to sell them that really doing right by the horse over their whole career and their long term. I mean, this horse is a testament to that for Balmoral, and it's a testament to using the lifetime of knowledge.
And I have to say, it's a testament not just to Balmoral and us, but building a team and all the people who have contributed to the success of this horse. We've known for a long time, some of them not as long, but it's people who we trust, people whose opinions we trust. We ask for input. We have a deep team, everything from our farrier to our vet to our chiropractor to David Vega, who's been with us, and all of the guys who work for us, everything to our acupuncturist, all of it. And people who were asking questions. Carleton went to very respected horsemen who he respects with confirmation, and had them come and look at the horse and say, what do you think about this horse? How can I stand it up better? So it's constantly asking, constantly learning.
Absolutely. So you mentioned soundness, and obviously it takes a huge team to keep horses sound at this level. I remember I was a couple of years ago when Carleton judged the National Horse Show, we interviewed him and asked what he was looking for. And he said soundness as his first answer, which, and if you read any prize list and you read the rule book, it's the hunters are to be judged on performance and soundness. And yet enough people don't always really focus on that. Let's talk a little bit about some members of the team and how they contribute to soundness for all the horses at Balmoral, how to address soundness issues before they start, and what kind of people we'll be talking to at American Equestrian School.
I think it starts, everyone says no foot, no horse, no hoof, no horse. So I think it starts at the bottom. It starts where the rubber meets the road, where the feet meet the ground. So we start there. We start with good shoeing. We start with good nutrition. We want happy horses in order to have healthy horses. We want them to grow good, strong foot. We want their feet to be balanced. And then we move into conditioning. And a lot of people think of hunters, especially, as horses that are, fat and shiny and maybe, maybe not super fit. But we want our horses super fit because we think that helps prevent injury. So all of our horses are very fit. Some of them get out of the stall 3-4 times a day, even just to walk or go on the treadmill, just to move their bodies. We think they have to go through their whole range of motion quite often. They need to get their heart rate up, just like a person. It's the same thing. If you're not fit, you're more likely to be injured.
Absolutely. I feel like we have some of this traditionalism that comes in and about the hunters, and and people worry about them being overfit. But it's really the hunters should be a testament to relaxation and not exhaustion.
Exactly. And we're not big, huge believers in lunging or going fast in a small circle. We try not to do that. We'd rather get the horses out and just tack walk them or get them out and just let them gallop in the morning. Anything other than going fast in a small circle, which they're not made to do. And when we do, on the occasions when we do lunge, it's not to make the horses go fast. Sometimes we'll just take them out. They need to buck. They need to just play for a minute. Or sometimes they just need to jog and warm up. So there are different ways of lunging and different reasons to lunge. And everyone who works with us knows that and respects it and is so good about it. So that's huge, I think, because sometimes you drive into a horse show early in the morning and you see all the lunging going on and you understand why a lot of horses don't stay sound.
Absolutely. So we had a question, where is the school going to be? So the American Equestrian School is based online. And you have all the core and regular curriculum of a normal school, grades 6 through 12, fully accredited. And then we also have our equestrian classes. We have online equestrian electives throughout the year. And then we have meetups, we have clinics, and we have seminars and learning opportunities that are all over the country. So those will match with some horse shows you might be going to. They can be matched with places you might plan to go because of them. The goal is to meet up with all the students within the school. In addition, there are all the regular school clubs. There's Model UN, there's Writing Club, and so you get to interact with a lot of students, both formally and informally, in and out of class. And we really want to make sure your socialization is up and you're not missing anything, that you get to spend as much time with the horses. One of the things that Traci and I have really noted that is missing, not by anyone's fault in this generation, is that time spent just observing horses and watching and understanding their patterns and behaviors are very lost, because everyone's on such a schedule. They're driven to the barn and then they need to go back for classes and they need to study for this, and they have this obligation and that obligation, and it's nighttime and they need to get to bed, and their trainers want to go home because they've been at the barn since 5 o'clock in the morning. So if we can really make a schedule that works better for everyone, spending that more time in the barn a little bit to slow down will increase the learning process so much faster. Just like teaching the horses, The long road is a short road, and really spending that time gaining that emotional and socio-emotional learning with the horses is so important, because that's what's going to, if this is going to be your lifelong career or your lifelong sport, that's what's going to make you a horse person. So we really want to be designed around getting that time in as well. In addition, we will have shadowing and other opportunities that are on a custom or one-on-one basis. So if you tell us various careers you want in the sport, we're going to match you with a professional in your area, set up shadowing opportunities, learning opportunities that are one-on-one. So if you want to be a vet, if you want to be learn more about acupuncture, learn more about body work, we're going to take where you are and set you up with someone in your area who might be interested. We really believe in this national approach because this is such a national sport at this point. If you're going to be successful, you need the connections. It doesn't matter if you have the nicest horse in the world. It doesn't matter if you're the best trainer in the world. As Traci said, she and Carleton were tapped into the expertise of every relationship that they've spent the last 50 years developing to help bring this horse along. They were asking all of their connections and friends and fellow judges and fellow horsemen about, how do we stand up this horse better? How can we do this better? What do you think of his feet? What do you think of his conditioning? They got the large view and the small view, the view from high up, the view from very close. And that's not something that can be created overnight. And if you start all creating this in the 6th through 12th grade, you have those connections, you have those people to call on, you have those relationships that are in your field your entire life.
And the other part of it is there are so many opportunities now with college, and nobody really knows how to navigate that, because of course some of these parents, it's their first time or it's their only child who rides. So we're going to walk you through that as well.
Absolutely. There are 6 types of collegiate riding, which most people don't even know. The ones most commonly known are the IHSA, the Intercollegiate Horse Show Association. There are about 400 schools that do IHSA and about 10,000 collegiate athletes of both genders who ride IHSA. And that involves all experience levels. You have people all the way from brand new riders to open riders competing in the IHSA format, and all their points are valued equally. So for a rider that, maybe got a late start or changes discipline or something like that, there are still plenty of great collegiate opportunities for them, which a lot of people don't know. And then there's the Cncaa, which has 17 schools and about 900 athletes. And that's kind of a different ballgame, and they follow the NCAA rules that every other sport follows. So navigating when you can talk to coaches, when you can handle all of these different aspects. And then there are 4 other types of collegiate riding. So you've got lots of options in college, matching that college that is a good fit for you, whether you would be successful at a small school or a large school with a lot of support, or, a smaller school in different areas of the country. If you want to be in the city, if you want to be in the country, it's mind-boggling, the choice. And there are riding programs at almost all of these schools in some form, at some level at this point. And so really matching you to the coach that makes sense for you. I mean, we all know that we learn really well from some people and not from others. And there's nothing wrong with any learning style. It's finding what works for you. And so at American Equestrian School, we're going to be very involved in that process of making sure that you find the coach that's a good match for your personality and how intensely you would like to ride and compete in college. And then finding the school that makes a lot of sense, has the majors you want. If you want to be an equine major, what schools have that, what classes do they have, and or you want to show in Florida throughout college. There are plenty of great schools in Florida that a lot of riders go to and then are able to show in the circuit during the winter. So whatever your goals are, we can custom tailor the college search process to that. And so it's really a one-on-one journey through finding what is the best next step for you personally.
I want to just go back to Devon too. I know we're here to talk a little bit about Devon, and I want to just mention that we had a rider come, a pony rider, who was first on the wait list, and we thought she was going to get in. And so we brought her pony just on the chance that it might get in, and it didn't get in. And her parents came to me at the end of the weekend and they said, "We are so glad we came. this was the best experience. And if anyone asks us, we're going to tell them that they need to come to these types of events and see them. So that's what I recommend to everyone, whether it's Devon or the National Horse Show or Derby finals or pony finals. Go and watch and absorb it, and you can learn so much. You know what you're getting into, then you can visualize it, you can set goals around it. So go to these places and just take it all in. That's my advice.
Yep. And there's so much to learn because it's all the top people at the sport, competing at the top of their game. I went to World Cup finals a couple of years ago in Omaha, and I didn't even go in the stands that much. I stood plastered against a schooling ring, watching how every single rider warmed up their horse, because most of those riders I've watched compete on those horses many times. I really understand how the horse goes in the ring. And so to be able to match that with watching every single one and how they warmed up and how they, some people, had draw reins on to start and took them off, or, started without anything and put stuff on, and really they know every inch of their horse. And then World Cup finals is that schooling ring is so small, it's, you can't, you can't fake anything. Like if you have a lot of space, you might be able to really, take your time building up a gallop or building up some of that responsiveness. You don't have time for that in these tiny indoors. And of course, the Europeans that grow up riding in them are fine. They just hop on and they're like, okay, listen. And the horses are like, yep. And so I think that's a little bit different from how a lot of us grow up. But if World Cup finals is your goal, understanding how you're going to have to warm up, how responsive your horse is going to be, what limitations you're going to have. And I think going to all the big horse shows, when it came time for really deciding to pursue my own riding more seriously, having gone to all the big horse shows, I understood what the goal was. I understood how many years it takes to get there. I understood what type of horse you need to have these goals, and and all the criteria that those horses need to have. And I think that that's a huge part of all of this. And that's something we're really hoping with American Equestrian School, is it opens people up to go to more horse shows in lieu of that. If they can watch live streams, that would maybe be during the school day, and have professionals, us or other people, kind of do a guided live stream watching during Harrisburg or Washington or Devon. I think that's such a valuable part of our sport, and really looking how what every horse has in common, and what we see variation of in the top level. I still find it fascinating that the horses have no real size consistency. You'll see little horses, you'll see big horses, and they all compete against each other, and they all have strengths and weaknesses. And there's so much body type diversity in the horses, and but they're all shiny, they're all peaking. As Traci said, no hoof, no horse, all their feet look great, all their at that level, you're seeing such a top level of care. So what varies across people, and what's different. And I think we can all learn so much by watching, both in person and on the live streams.
Yes, I think we should open up to questions at some point, but we have a special guest. So do we want to have our guest come in, or what should we do? Oh, Piper, you're muted, I think.
Let's have our guest come in and we can ask questions of our guest.
Okay. Janine, can you help us?
Yes. Okay. Are they in the waiting room?
I don't know. On the call. On the call?
It looks like they might have used
a different link.
Yeah. You might have to let them know to go back to that panelist email they got, but I can also try to resend it to them really quick.
Okay.
Keep going and I'll try to resend it so it'll pop up to the.
Okay. You can hear us.
Yep. Someone asked about the affordability of this. We are doing everything we can to make a customized experience as affordable as possible. And we'll continue to work with everyone the best we can. Over 25% of the Ivy League admissions are still from students from private schools. And, there are gaps in the American educational system, and to have high quality teachers for every single class and accreditation for every single class. We're under constraints, and we'll continue to do the best we can and offer as much scholarship and apply for as many grants and other tuition assistance.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
This is our first. It's our first special guest, Nick Haness.
Hi guys.
So Nick rode Only Always at Devon a couple weeks ago. It was not his first championship at Devon by any means, but it was his first Grand Hunter Championship. Was that something you were expecting, or what was it like to come in to Devon and really just sweep away the competition like that?
I think that everyone comes to Devon with high hopes of doing well, but without any expectations, because the competition is, the best of the country. So I think it was extremely thrilling and exciting, and a huge honor to be Grand, which was something I've never been before at Devon. So yeah, absolutely. It was just incredible.
Let's talk a little bit about education. We were just talking about how the way the horse world's structured right now, a lot of people are almost forced to learn things the hard way, and it's expensive and takes decades to learn things the hard way. When you look back on your own education, both kind of traditional education and horse world education, like what kind of opportunities do you wish were there, and what kind of access to top professionals who really knew what they were doing would you have looked for or sought out at a younger age?
I think that this day and age, there's just a lot more to learn and gather within our industry and from other professionals via social media, which is something that was not available to me when I was growing up. So I think certainly there's a lot more access for people to reach out and to learn a lot from the best people in the industry. And I think that's a really great tool if used and utilized properly. So I think that that's something that's for people far, near and far, whether you're at the horse show present or you're, able to connect and watch seminars or, listen to, these conversations happen. That's a huge tool, I think, for many, many people. And especially when you're being educated on from everything about horsemanship to how to develop, young horses, the whole process.
And we were just talking about networking, and obviously Only Always was a very team approach by, very top people in the industry, you and Traci and Carleton and so many other people on that team. Can you talk a little bit about like making connections and how relationships strengthen how well you can care for your horses and how well you can run your business?
Absolutely. Well, I think that the key component for many people to understand is that, to produce a horse like this and to garner a grand championship at a horse such as Devon, it does really take a team, and that goes in all directions. There's a lot of behind the scenes work that goes into producing horses, and it's really fun in this situation for Balmoral, for Traci and Carleton and I, because this is a horse that was unknown, unrecognized, fairly new to the scene, and really was truly produced from the ground up and made into the famous horse that he is now. And that really has a lot to say about these, myself and Traci and Carleton, just having a really good understanding of our team and what each and every one of us brought to the table. And that's something that I think a lot of people certainly can learn from and also, try to emulate, because that's a huge, huge component in something like this. And it was fun for us because, as you know, I have my own business in California. Traci and Carleton have their business. And this was a really unique situation where we could kind of merge all of our knowledges together. And there's certainly a lot that each of us, brought and learned from. I certainly learned a lot from Carleton in the past 6 months, and just, knowing sort of the behind the scenes with this horse and working together and collaborating on ideas. Carleton is a perfectionist. He works endlessly, and just his attention to detail is so extremely detailed, if you want to say. So it was really amazing for me because Carleton had an idea of going to Devon and being champion months ago. And months ago, he started asking me every day, every time I rode the horse, do you like the bit? Do you like the way he feels? Do you like the way we warmed up? Do you like the way we took care of him afterwards? You know, and in between horse shows, you know, how do we prepare him at home? There was just a lot of thought that went into this. And I just think that's so fun and so amazing to continue to learn from other people. And everyone does things, you know, slightly differently. And when you can have a horse like this horse, who's a really special and unique horse, and you bring a team of people in like we did, it just made it so much more gratifying in the end when we had the result we were looking for, and the horse was just peaked at a perfect time and just showed up to Devon and was wonderful.
I think that people don't appreciate how much strategy and intellect goes into this business. And I think a lot of people, you know, on my side of the coin, because plenty of horse people are less than traditionally educated, you know, have a lot of biases. But I think every top professional is so unbelievably smart in this sport, and so incredibly strategic and organized, and you know, their mind might work a little bit differently than traditional school. Yeah.
And horses are not instant gratification. You know, there's a large deal of patience involved, and like you said, planning and strategizing, and obviously hoping and believing that what you're doing is going to work. But you never know. You know, we're working with live animals, and you know, you never know the outcome. But it's certainly something that, you know, I think people need to understand that it's not something that just happens. You don't snap your fingers and just, you know, end up where, you know, grand champion at Devon. It's a really lengthy process and a lot of really hard work that goes into that. And, you know, from the grooms to every aspect, the vets, the shoers, the trainers, the riders, you know, and this has been really fun for me because I was mainly just this horse's rider, which was obviously it's a decent part of the equation, but so much more of it, I give so much credit to the team behind the horse, and that's behind the scenes, and that's, you know, a lot of planning and really diligent thought process. And I think that patience is a really important word and key thing to think about with dealing with horses.
So I'll ask Nick and then I'll ask Traci. The Pam asked the question in the chat. What did you see in the video that sparked your interest? What was different about him? But Nick met him, you know, later after Traci and Carleton already bought him and imported him. But I'll ask you the same thing, Nick. Like, what did you see about this horse, or when you rode him for the first time, that you thought was special? What was different about him?
Traci, do you want to start first?
Sure. The first thing that jumped out to me on the video was his presence. Just, he made you want to watch him. That was the first thing. And then his balance. He has beautiful balance, and he's pretty to watch across the ground. Every jump was the same within range. If he jumped 10 jumps, he jumped 10 similar jumps from not similar distances. So he really checked all the boxes. He's a beautiful looking horse. He's a good enough mover, but mainly for me, it was the presence and the balance and the jump.
For me, it's funny because, you know, we're all competitive with each other, and certainly, you know, we support each other on the West Coast, and other trainers and professionals. We know we're all, you know, we all want to win, of course, but we all support each other, and it's fun. It's good competition when you see someone who brings a new face and a new horse in. And I remember specifically the first time I ever laid eyes on Only Always was at Thermal, and Carleton walked down to the ring and he was just walking the horse, and I had an instant, like, it was weird. I had just an instant connection to this horse, and there was just something about him just drew me to him. And I just remember asking Carleton, like, what horse is that horse? And it had a beautiful face. And like Traci said, just, you wanted to watch him. His expression was beautiful. He just made a real strong presence, and I just instantly wanted to know all about him. And, you know, just from I don't want to compete against him because I was like, you know, shoot, but I wanted to know more about him. And it was an honor later that then maybe the next year, that was this year, when Carleton asked me if I would be interested in watching the horse go and giving him some advice on what I thought we could do with that horse, because he hadn't shown really ever before in the United States. So that was a fun process. But from the very beginning, he really captivated me.
Nick, I want you to tell your funny story, because we appreciate, of course, everything, but your trust in us, and that you could just basically show up and get on the horse anywhere that it was showing, including Devon, and that you dropped everything to come and do that. There was a situation that occurred at Devon where you were in the ring showing and you were cantering down the line, a 6-stride line, and there was a runner, a sprinter running next to you. Can you tell that story and how you kept your focus or didn't keep your focus?
Only at Devon.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, this is certainly a moment I will never forget. It's never happened to me before. But it was an amazing testament to that horse to keep his focus. But basically we had gone already in the first years, the green 3-6. That was sort of our warm up for the green confirmation, and this horse won the model that morning. We had high hopes of tackling the championship in the confirmation. So I'm in my first class and I've done about 30% of the course, and I'm coming around the end gate past the judges line, and out of the corner of my eye, I see like this commotion, this person on the side of the arena, literally sprinting like they're in the New York Marathon, just like hands going, hair flying, running and loud, like stomping on the ground. And I mean, I was certainly so distracted. I was like, I didn't know what to do. I mean, do I pull up? Do I ask for a reride? And I'm like, no, I basically have no choice here to keep going. And I'm telling you, we were neck and neck. Like I'm going down the outside judges line, and this person is running so fast. He's keeping up with my stride, which is a pretty open stride, right? So I'm going down the line, and I can see that I'm still in a rat race with this person next to me. And I just kept praying to myself and thinking to myself and talking to the horse, saying, please don't spook, please don't bolt, please don't take off running or do something silly. But I wouldn't have been mad at him if he did, because he had he should have. I mean, it was really scary. And Devon's a pretty busy, there's a fair going on. There's a lot of people that are there. They're not, necessarily educated on horses and how to behave around horses. There's children in strollers. There's people with umbrellas. I mean, there's just a lot going on as a Ferris wheel. So there's a lot of distractions as is. And then you add to the element, someone running as fast as they possibly can right next to where you're jumping. I mean, 5 feet from the rail. I just was incredibly proud of that horse, to maintain his cool and keep his composure and perform and not be distracted. And I think that I spooked more than Only Always did. So it was a pretty funny story. And I come out of the ring and I go, did you guys see was I imagining that, or did that really happen? And they were like, oh no, that happened.
And Nick, didn't you say something to him? Didn't you land from the line and say, stop
I did.
running?
Yeah, I think I had a few other words I might have said, but I basically, in a nutshell, I landed after the oxer and I said, stop running, loud enough where, he could hear me, but not loud enough the judges could hear me. But I wanted to yell at him the entire line, but the judges were sitting right there next to it. So I couldn't say anything until I actually got to the corner.
But to me, that's such a good reflection of preparation and, mental cool.
I think trust. I mean, I think there's trust. That horse had full trust that whatever I was doing in the saddle, he was going to do what I told him to do. And he trusted that, whatever else was going on outside the atmosphere, he was totally in the zone and dialed in. And he was jumping and beautiful. I mean, he wanted to win. I mean, he went into that horse show and just wanted to win. I think I've never had a horse so consistent. I mean, we had scores almost every single round he did between 87 and 89, with maybe the lowest score being 86.5 in one class. But he basically was just right in the zone and so focused and consistent. That's really, really hard to ask a horse to do, and especially a horse that's never been in that sort of atmosphere before or environment. It was his first year there at Devon. This could have been his pre-green year, but he's such an athletic jumper. We did the first year with him, but he trusted us, and he could have let us down. And I would not have been upset about it because it would have been acceptable. And it really proved to be what a grand hunter should be. So that was pretty awesome.
Nick Jackie McFarland asked what social media platform you find most useful and which ones do you use, or does it vary?
That's a good question. I'm not super savvy on social media, so I'm probably not the right person to ask, but I think that I spend a lot of time in old school. I go on YouTube and pull up videos of people that I admire in the sport, and people that I want to ride like, and that's in the jumper ring, Grand Prix, and in the hunter rings. I love to watch, I love when people post these throwback photos and videos from hunters in the 70s and the 80s. And, I watched the original Derby finals and what those horses went like. It's just really studying our sport and studying position and people that have, become famous and are famous. I really admire them. And I think that just having the access to watch them is a really, for me, I'm a visual person. So being able to watch is a big deal. And just sort of knowing and having respect for people, because there are names that I hear even to this day that I don't even know who that person is anymore. Maybe they're not around anymore, but there's so much to learn from them still, and to be able to look back and see how they did things is really a strong instrument that I think it helps me become a better professional.
Absolutely. And that's something that, I've talked with a lot of people, young people especially, about, is don't exhaust your mentors. And there are a lot of people that we don't necessarily think of that know so much that, might not be as busy, or, might be slowing down a little bit, that are perfectly happy to have a phone call from a young person and ask questions or learn different things. And there's so many ways to approach the knowledge that does exist in our sport. When you said that, remembered the video of Leslie Steele and Country Swing at Devon, which is I think we all watched so many times. It's from the late 80s, and she won. I think it was in the Confirmation Hunters, and by today's standards, she is flying around the Dixon Oval at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
Yes. That was the style then. You galloped.
Yep. And I think that that's such a good reminder too, because I think people growing up, think that wherever they see the sport or learn it for the first time, it's very static, and it's not. The things that have changed our sport are exclusively small groups of people who have been committed to ideas and their style or different styles. And another thing I was reminded about today was that the Western riders for NCAA don't wear helmets still, which makes me crazy because they're going to college to get an education. They should be wearing helmets. But the reason we all wear helmets is because a couple very committed people staked their career on getting at the time an unpopular rule changed. And so I think so many people throw their hands up and say, oh, we can't change this sport, or there's nothing we can do, or it is what it is. But when you start really thinking about it on a timeline, so much has changed, so much can be changed. If you see parts of the sport you want to make better or want to improve, you can be part of that.
Absolutely.
Traci, you have other questions for Nick?
I want to ask Nick, I know, Nick, you grew up in the horse world and doing a lot of catch riding as a junior. How did you handle school, and did you like school?
Yes. I grew up in a family of non-horse people. So my goals and my dreams of skipping school and going to horse shows wasn't my reality. My mom made me go to school. And that certainly, I think, was a challenge as I grew into it later in my junior career, towards the end of my junior career, because horse shows were demanding and I really wanted to travel and go east. So I did normal high school until my very last year, my senior year. And then that year I was able to do an independent study type of a thing where I'd go to school once a week. And I'd go on Mondays and get my work for the week. And basically we covered one subject every 3 weeks. So it was a lot of work. It actually was probably harder than going to normal school. And I had to stay very committed and responsible. And I would go to the horse shows, and in between rounds or in between classes, I'd sit in the stands and do my work, do my homework, do my projects at night and when I wasn't riding. But it definitely was a huge helpful aspect to my education to be able to go to horse shows and travel and do the, the horse show scene. And I think that this day and age is even more, there's more horses available. There's more places to go. I think that this generation of kids certainly struggle with having access to, those type of programs because it's demanding. There's a lot of hours to be spent, at the horse shows and a lot of work committed to it. But I was grateful to have that opportunity for myself then. I think that now there's even more, I see people that have people that come to the horse shows and there's stations and there's tutors. And I think that's great to have, an overall availability of education while you're at horse shows, because without that, I mean, it's really challenging. And I do feel like education in college is super important. I, for one, did not go to college after my junior career. I turned professional right away. And I think that very few professionals have that ability to turn professional and have a business at that young of an age. I certainly advise any young professional to go to college, learn about business, learn, social skills and people skills before you, dive into having your own business, because there's so much more than just riding a horse that goes into this.
Amen. Should we let Nick go and then do some more questions?
Yep. Sounds great. Thank you so much for joining us, Nick, and congratulations again for Grand Hunter.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Have a good one.
Thanks, Nick.
Thanks. Bye.
It's always so interesting that I've interviewed many top professionals, and almost exclusively it's go to college, it's get an education, it's think about the non-riding parts of this sport. And I think, understanding how many careers and how many different options are in this sport is such a huge part of it. And every person on that support staff, for only always, from PR to acupuncturist to body worker to vets and farriers and grooms and barn staff, and then every single product that he used, someone invented, someone designed, someone developed, someone designed that bridle, someone designed that saddle, someone designed every piece of apparel worn, all of those things. I mean, down to even the details, someone designed those stall mats that were hauled in. Someone's running that shavings company. And so really thinking about the horse show in a much larger and more broad sense, thinking about all the vendors, thinking about all the different parts of both lifestyle and culture in the horse world, as well as the actual riding, building the jumps. So it's really kind of saying, riding is a career and it's a potential career for many people, but there are so many more careers, and there might be a better fit for you career within the industry. And almost no one does one thing. Everyone I know in the industry is a judge, rider, trader, therapist, bill, accountant, whatever they have to do for their own business. If you're running your own business, if it's not big enough yet to support other people, you are doing every single aspect. Most of these people are doing their own social media or their own PR to some extent in this world. A lot of them write their own articles or contribute stuff. So, there's so many aspects to this, and I think it's hard to wrap your head around at any age, but especially as a young person, especially someone who grew up, my parents didn't ride at all, your parents didn't ride at all, Traci. I mean, it makes it a little bit of a hard slog to figure this all out. As Nick said, it was hard to get his parents to understand. Back in the day when they had phone books, they used to, before the internet, everyone's phone number was in a phone book, and it was delivered to you, and it was this big. And they had the white pages were people's phone numbers and the yellow pages were businesses. And my mom opened the yellow pages to I think it was called farms and barns or something was the section, and she found a barn and I started riding. And everyone does the best they can with the data they have at the time, but we can all make better decisions with better data.
Definitely. And that's what we're trying to give. And that's if people say to us, what do you want to give back? And that's what we're trying to give, is the faster track to better decisions, better for people, better for horses. You're on mute, Piper.
Naomi asked, how many horse shows have I been to? Well, I plan to take June off of horse showing and go to 0 horse shows, and June 2022. And now I am going to 5 horse shows. So I average about 60 horse shows a year. And I usually lie because that sounds like such an unreasonable number. When people ask me, I'm like, oh, like 40 or so, like any, person who loves what they do. But yeah, I go to at least 60 horse shows a year. 2020, I think I only went to like 40 or so, but I've done 60 horse shows a year since 2014. And before that, I was in school, so I would go to horse shows sporadically for a few years before that. And then I took a number of years completely off shows to focus on school. I've said this to a lot of groups, but I truly believe that the skills that you learn at the barn are transferable to success in any field and any discipline. Going to graduate school, and competing against the best in the world in chemistry in a different field. It's those skills of waking up and attacking every problem from the outset, and not procrastinating, not being intimidated by anything, just charging in and saying, this is what we need to do and this is how we're going to get it done. And those skills served me all over my different career choices. And and a lot of people would come to me and say, how do you know this? How do you know to do this? And I was like, and no one wants to hear it, like, oh, because I'm a pony expert and that translates. But it always has for me. It always has been the same skills and the same discipline and the same desire to be excellent and to be oriented to continue over and over and over and be wrong and fail until you're excellent at something. Pam said in the chat, we also need to recognize that being a business owner is much more complex than it used to be. So many rules and regulations, taxes, payrolls, workman's comp, local regulations, and conservation rules all play a big part in having a horse business. And absolutely, I mean, horse businesses were something that people could essentially do on their own if they wanted to for many years. And now you need a team. You need to know who you need to know. You need to know what you don't know. You need to know who you don't know. To put together that team to make sure that you're following every legal and local regulation that exists. And, as I said earlier, regular business rules apply to horse businesses. And we kind of didn't admit that for a long time in the industry. And we, as an industry, got away with that for a long time, but that's not the case anymore. We all need to follow all the rules. We are under a larger scrutiny than ever, both on horse training side, and social media is a double-edged sword on everything. And following regulation, and there are more rules than ever, and especially in some states as things get more congested. The other thing I want to point out that I do think is interesting and concerning for our industry is that, when I interview people, most of them said that they learn that they like horses from driving by a farm that they happen to drive by on their way to school or their way somewhere growing up. And as America gets more bifurcated, we're more city and country, like you're having fewer and fewer people just happen to drive by a farm. The farms are getting further out. The cities are getting more built up. Land is getting more expensive. You're having more local regulations, more conservation rules. And so really understanding that, like, where we are going to introduce the next generation to horses to keep our sport alive, to keep our industry healthy. I mean, these are all things we're going to have to address with this next generation of horse people, and we need them to be more prepared than ever and more organized and more educated than ever if they're going to continue being excellent stewards to our horses over the next generation.
Should we do some questions?
Yeah, does anyone else have any questions? Lisa said rules are changing all the time. That's absolutely true. You have to reread the rule book every year and they slip stuff in that you can't find. And the rule book is a tome and there's a lot to read. And yeah, I mean, I was talking to a trainer a couple weeks ago that jumped an oxer that was legal last year in the schooling ring. And she had somehow missed that rule change despite reading the rule book for this year. And Sword came over and was like, that's an illegal oxer. And she's like, I literally jumped in the same spot here last year. And they were like, not anymore. And this happens constantly. And luckily we have great stewards in our sport who can help people navigate each page and each rule change, and every interaction can be like that. It can be educational and updated and have nothing negative about it.
Even the stewards are constantly looking at their rule books because nobody can keep up with all the rule changes every year. Everyone hears about the big, the scandalous ones or the ones that, you know, are on the front page, but the little ones slip through the cracks and you find out sometimes the hard way that that rule has changed.
Yep. Evie mentioned that she wants to read more horse books in school, and that's what American Equestrian School is all about. We can update all your readings to horse books and make sure that you're reading and being challenged and engaging in content that you're interested in all classes.
I think Evie would be the first one to admit that she's learned much more about life skills at the barn than she has probably in school.
Yep. The med rules are very confusing. Lisa mentioned that. Evie asked about finding the rule books. They're on the USEF website. I think if you just Google search USEF rule book, you should find stuff. There's general rule books. There are rule books for every discipline and affiliation. So there's a general rule book, and then there's the hunter specific rule book. And then there's the jumper, equitation, hunter breeding. So there are a lot of rule books to read every year. Annually, it's about 1,200 pages of reading, which is longer than, you know, most cookbooks. But yeah, so there's a lot to go through and a lot to read. But if you kind of do chunks at a time and really it's a historical context to think about what caused them to pass all of these rules and what they needed. I think this is a good place to wrap up for the night. So thank you everyone for coming, and we really appreciate everyone's interaction. Thank you, Traci. Thank you, Hannes, for joining us. And if you need more information, you can go to americanequestrian.school to learn more. You can follow up with me or Traci or Janine if you have any other questions about the school or specific classes, accreditation, whatever you need to know there. Again, 6th through 12th grade is the American Equestrian School, and we're accepting remote applications for hybrid equestrian learning for 2022 to 2023 academic year. So thank you, everyone.
Also, Piper, we should mention that next week we're doing another champions webinar. We're going to have Connie Tram-Hunt, who's a large R judge. So you guys all come back and you can ask questions of Connie, and she'll tell you things from the judge's box, from the judge's perspective, and bring your friends.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
A follow-up email from us with that invite to the next event that Traci mentioned. And yes, there will be a recording available in a few days. We can send that out to you as well. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.